Hey friends, Sonia here with Ellie and Mac today, and today I want to share with you something that I've been working on for a while, and I kept putting off this video because I was waiting for everything to be perfect. And of course, it never is. I don't know about you, but my sewing room is never completely spotless. There's always some area that needs attention. But I wanted to show you my pattern organization and also my fabric organization, and hopefully this can give you some tips and tricks on what might help to keep you organized in your sewing journey. This has helped me a lot, especially with indie patterns where if you're not using a projector, you're printing out a lot of patterns and a lot of different sizes and things like that. So these are how I store my patterns, and even though I do use a projector now, and I'll show you my projector setup really quick in my new room because we moved, so it's different from my old video, I do still use these quite a bit, and the reason for that is a lot of times when I project a pattern down onto my sewing table, I will trace it and make modifications, do pattern hacks, that kind of thing. You guys know that I love a good pattern hack, so I am always tracing patterns, and then of course you want to hold on to those because those hacks, you know, they take a lot of effort and things, so you definitely want to still store them. Now I have my patterns stored in such a way that every binder is a different company. Some of my pattern companies, like of course Ellie and Mac, I have 3 binders for. I've got a kids and men's, I have an A through G for women's, and an an H through Z for women's, or I'm sorry, curvy fit and straight fit. And because I have a lot of the patterns, and these are also partially because I started sewing with PDF patterns long before projectors were a thing. So I've got a lot of printed patterns in here too, but I will show you. The way I like to do this is I have the binder, and I've got all different sizes of binders, but I like to use like 1.5 inch especially. I find the 2 inch things start to get too wobbly and fall out, and then the 1 inch just doesn't hold enough patterns. So I use my Cricut to put the name on the end of each of my binders, and then what I do is put each pattern in a page protector, and then I'll print out, and I haven't done this for all of them, but for a lot of my patterns I will print out the picture of the pattern so that I can just easily reference what that pattern looks like. The nice thing about printing out that front page too is it does show you the sizes included right on the front of it and everything, so it kind of gives you some pertinent information there. And then I will fold my patterns in as few folds as possible to fit into that sleeve right there. And then if I have multiple sizes, a lot of times with a kid size, I'll just paper clip them together and put multiple sizes in the same sleeve. With adult sizes, a lot of times I will do separate page protectors for each different size, just so the pieces don't get all mixed up. But that is how I store a lot of my patterns, and this has been so helpful. I also use a wet erase marker to write the name right there of the pattern, so that way if I don't have the front printed out, which most of these do, oh here we go, so I don't have the image printed out for the curved hem tank, so I just wrote it right there. That way I don't have to pull out pattern pieces to figure out what that pattern is. And so once I have the pattern in a sleeve page protector, I will keep them alphabetical throughout the binder, and that helps me more than anything be able to quickly find what patterns I am looking for, making sure that the names are alphabetical. Some of the patterns that I have, I've got multiple designers in a binder, so I will go alphabetical by designer and then alphabetical by pattern. If I've only got, you know, 2, maybe 3 patterns from that designer, then it doesn't need its own binder. But for companies where I have a ton of the patterns, like Ellie and Mac, and there's multiple binders, keeping everything organized and alphabetical it just helps a lot as far as being able to know if I have a certain size printed, easily go back and reference it, easily go back and make another one, or, you know, make alterations or anything like that. This just keeps me so organized. So I love that. Another thing that really helps is this, oops, this right here. I have, it's just a little, you know, file keeper thing, and when I've used a pattern, because let's be honest, I'm not going to immediately go back and put it back in the binder that it belongs in, which I should, but you know, it doesn't always happen that way. So this is my dedicated spot to keep patterns that need refiling. That way they're not all over the place. That way I'm not losing pattern pieces. So this has been really helpful. And then another thing I keep in here with the rest of my patterns is my swatch book. So you guys may or may not have seen the swatch book video. I will link that in the comments below if you haven't had a chance to check that out. This is a really great resource. And so keeping this close by with my patterns to be able to cross-reference the fabrics is fantastic. So I keep that right here so I know where that is. And I think that is about everything as far as my PDF pattern storage goes. You can see probably on this side that I've got my little boxes. So these are my big 4 patterns, and I did the same thing here. I just have these all in, well, some of them still need filing. But I have these all in order based on what type of garment they are. And so those I can find pretty easily. They're not quite as organized, but I just don't use big 4 patterns as much. And big 4, if you're not familiar with that term, is McCall's, Simplicity, Butterick, Vogue. Yeah, those are the big 4 pattern companies. So I've got a lot of those patterns stored here, both patterns that I've bought and patterns that I have purchased from D-stashes and that I got from my mom back in her sewing days and all kinds of things like that. So those are all stored over here. These are all in binders across here. And then of course I have my printer right here. This is a HP LaserJet Pro, which I mean, it's fine. It's just a black and white printer, but it is a laser printer. So one thing I love about that is that if you were printing a lot of patterns, laser printers are significantly more efficient than your standard printer. And so it does take a big ink cartridge, which the investment for those is obviously higher than the little ink cartridges that go in your normal printer. But you're going to be able to print, you know, 500, 1,000 pages, something like that on one cartridge, and so it's going to go really far. They're just very efficient that way. I got this, it was a used, no, it was a floor model. It was a floor model that I got at, I think, Office Max or Staples or something like that for maybe like 50 or 60 bucks, and it has been fantastic for my sewing journey just because I've been able to print a lot without that huge investment of buying ink cartridges all the time. So throw that little tidbit in there for you if you're interested in printers, but do keep in mind that these are only black and white. So when you saw my cover photos for the patterns, that's why they're black and white, which doesn't bother me. It's fine. Okay, now I will show you my fabric storage. So I'm obviously sitting on a stool in the closet of my scrap room, and so I'll kind of show you where my fabric is stored up a little bit higher. Now I have multiple methods of storing fabric, and I'll show you the different ways that I have kind of my fabric organized and why I organize it that way. All right, so I have cube storage in my closet, obviously. So those are all my scrapbooks because I scrapbooked before I did sewing. But then all across this middle level is custom cotton lycra. So I store those on comic book board. It really just makes everything the same size. It makes it nice and even all the way across. And you can obviously see from the edge what fabrics you have. Now we're moving over to my kind of garment clothes right here. And the way that I have these stored is I roll them, and then each cube is a different type of fabric. So here I've got mostly rib knit fabrics. These are athletic fabrics. These are going to be both DBP, so double brushed poly, and rayon spandex. And these are gonna be sweater knits right here. Those ones are woven. Those ones are also mostly woven. These are new fabrics that I haven't had a chance to fold yet. And then as we go up, I've got just really, really thick sweater knits, flannel, and those are like home decor fabrics that I use for doing purses, bags, that kind of thing. And then I've got some, what is that? The stuffing that you put in like quilts, batting. I've got that up there, and then that bag is all like minky and things like that. So with these fabrics, I find it works better to just roll them because a lot of them are very, very stretchy. And so if we put them on boards, they might be really slouchy and they're not gonna stand up the way the cotton lycra would. So I just find that it's easier to put these in rolls. I do my best to roll everything so that it's the same depth, so that way I can see everything that I have and it doesn't get lost. That is kind of how I like to store things to keep really, really organized. And I also want to make sure that things are stored nicely. That way my fabrics aren't getting damaged and things like that. These are all totes with different notions, zippers, bra cups, things like that, and trims and all that good stuff. And then, you know, elastic, things like that. And then my board right here, which we finished up a couple of months ago. My husband and I built that, and I cannot explain how amazing it is to have a pegboard with all of your things just right there, right next to your sewing, and it just makes everything so much faster to clean up too. So the pegboard is from Home Depot. The trim is 1x2s, also from Home Depot. We just painted them black with some black paint that we had. And the shelves I made, those are 1x4s, and again, just cut them down to size. I will link in the comments below the 2 different hook sets that I got. So one is a massive set of hooks for a pegboard, and the other one is these cups right here, which are great for scissors and marking tools, pens, seam rippers, just like your little tools and things like that. So that has just been a lifesaver. And then of course I've got my Ellie and Mac sign up there, and my quote says, "So trade that typical for something colorful." If you know the movie that is from, major bonus points. It's one of my favorites. Link or post it down in the comments below, because you will be my favorite. Love that movie. It is just the most inspiring and fantastic. So that is all of that sewing storage stuff. And then I guess the last thing I can show you, which is kind of a little bit of a mess right now, is this right here is a stand that has just little baskets in it, and that is where I keep all of my scraps. So the top one is athletic scraps, the middle one is like clothing, sweater knits and stuff, and then the bottom is going to be custom cotton lycra scraps. So anytime I need to have neck bands, cuffs, that kind of thing, or piping or anything, I always want to check that first so I'm not cutting into a fresh yard. And I'm kind of a hoarder that way. I keep my scraps. That is my sewing room. I hope that maybe you guys got some ideas on some storage things or storage tips and tricks for your patterns and your fabric. And if there's any questions that you have, feel free to let me know. I would love to answer those. I'll try and link all of the storage and organizational kind of supplies that I used in the comments so that you guys can access those really easily. I pretty much get everything on Amazon just because I have tiny children and it's easier to not leave the house. So so that is how I do things. But a lot of these things like binders you can find anywhere at Walmart or whatever is easy for you. So again, I hope that you enjoyed a little tour of my craft room, and we will see you in the next video. Don't forget to pop down in the comments below and let us know what other videos you want to see. We'll see you next time. Stay crafty, friends.